Hey guys, welcome back to my Colourful Country Life. Today I am taking on a massive challenge, one that may just make or break this page. I'm going to attempt to use all 150 Prismacolor pencils to complete this epic double page spread from Alien Worlds by Kerby Rosanes. That's right, every single pencil, including the metallics, the neons, and even that electric blue we all love to hate. No pencil left behind. And to keep track, once I use a pencil, it's going straight into this plastic tub, and by the end of the challenge, my pencil case should be empty. I'll also have a counter on screen so we can track my progress together as well. Now, I have mentioned attempting this a few times now, so I'm excited to finally give it a go. I feel like I've come close sometimes. You guys know I love using a lot of pencils in my color combinations, and I think the closest I've come was probably with the Underwater City in Worlds Within Worlds by Kerby Rosanes. It certainly felt like I used every pencil. I'll have to go back to that video and count them. If there's another page where you think I've used more than that one, please let me know and I'll go back and have a look. But here is the real challenge, not just using all 150 colors, but actually making it look good too. With every color of the rainbow and then some, this could either be a masterpiece or a total hot mess. I mean, how do you blend neons, metallics, bold, vibrant colors, muted tones, and pastels all together on the one page and still make it look pretty? Well, we're about to find out. Since this is a huge undertaking, I'm going to be colouring it over multiple sessions, and at the end of each session, I will check in with you all. I will show you how my pencil case is looking, hopefully empty, and chat about any easy or tricky moments that I have found along the way. So, do you think I can do it? Can I actually use all 150 pencils and make it look good? Pause the video right now. Let me know in the comments, will I succeed or will this be a colourful catastrophe? Okay guys, I actually don't even know where to start. Normally I'd have a colour palette in mind and do some basing first. My colour palette, however, is non-existent, and as for basing, it's kind of like underpainting. It helps me to lay down less colour. I can still use the same amount of pencils, but I don't need to work them as much for the results that I want. So to base or not to base, that is the question. You know what? I think I might start with the rocks because I can use all my greys, or quite a few of them at least, and then use some blues or browns for shadows and maybe some greens to add some moss. I think I'll leave the big elements like the sky and possibly the ground cover to last, just because they are massive areas, and if I need to, I can use a multitude of combos to use up any pencils that I still have left. We could even do like a galaxy sky or something like that, or some colourful clouds if I need be. What about the spaceship? Actually, I have a rainbow combination that uses so many pencils. Hang on, let me check. I know it uses quite a few pencils. Rainbow. Yep, 31 pencils. So maybe we could do a rainbow spaceship. Would that look weird? I feel like it might look weird. I don't know. Maybe we could do rainbow ground, or maybe I can add a rainbow through the sky here to use up 31 pencils straight away. Who knows? I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know if this is going to work. I hope so. I hope I do not ruin my book by having a complete catastrophe here. Now, this also is not going to be a colour along. I will show you the pencils as I'm using them. This is a challenge video though, so I'm not going to put all the pencil numbers and names down below, because changing 150 pencils over and again would be quite frustrating and stressful if I had to write them all down below. It would take a lot of time. So we're going to cut that out, and I'm probably going to speed up this video as well, so you're not going to be sitting here for about the 25 hours that I expect it to take for me to complete this. I will speed up the process, and I'll put a counter at the top, and wish me luck, because I still have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Now, I don't know if this goes without saying or if I need to say this, but some of the pencils will be repeated. So, for example, I may have two different green combos. Obviously, I'm going to have a lot more than two different green combos for all of those green pencils, but I might have two different green combos that both start with dark green and then have different pencils after that dark green. So the dark green is being repeated. I'm going to try not to do that as much as possible, but you will see the pencils repeated. So when you're looking at the counter, that pencil won't be counted twice. So it's only going to get counted the first time that I use that colour. So I'm going to pull out some greys now here to get started on these rocks. Alright, so as I sat down to start this absolutely mammoth task, I actually felt surprisingly relaxed, at least for the first few pencils. I started by naturally gravitating towards elements that are in my comfort zone, and by that I mean parts of the page where I already knew what colour they would be. And this is something I do occasionally, especially when tackling busy Kerby pages or really any intricate illustration. If I'm unsure of my colour scheme for a page, I do tend to start with background elements. Now, not the literal background, but those secondary elements on a page like grass, trees, or water. Elements that aren't going to be the main focus of the final image. Now, doing this helps make the other details on the page more visible so you know what's left to work with. Also, just so you know, I will only be showing each pencil on the screen the first time I use it, just to help to keep track as we work through the full 150 so I don't get lost. And after that, you'll just see me colouring, but I'll have a counter on the screen so you can follow along with how many pencils have been used so far. And even though this is Alien Worlds, I still defaulted to earthy greens, browns, and greys. That's just my habit. I tend to colour elements in their usual colours. Little did I know, though, that this would cause some challenges later down the track, but we will discuss that when we get to that part. But as I laid down those first layers, I already knew the easy part would not last forever. It's one thing to shade some rocks with a dozen greys, but knowing I had to work through all 150 pencils, that reality was sitting in the back of my mind from the very beginning. Still, at this point, it did feel manageable and I was quietly confident. I started by working on the rocks using a variety of French greys, warm greys, and cool greys to add interest and variation. There is a lot of rock to work with on these pages, so I knew this was a good spot to work in several shades early on. I also added some deeper tones for shadows, plus hints of green to suggest moss. Next, I moved onto the tree trunks and the forest elements. I used a brown combination for the tree trunks, even sneaking in that beautiful metallic bronze pencil. Also, a lot of the color combinations that I have used in this video have come from my Prismacolor color combo series, which you may have already seen on my channel. This combo is on my brown combinations worksheet, and if you're interested, I will link the full playlist down below for you. Now, to thicken up the forest feel, I layered in some lush greens behind the tree trunks. After all, this is the Luscious Landscape double page spread. And at the end of this first session, I had only used 26 pencils. Honestly, at this point, seeing how much of the page I'd actually covered and still how full my pencil case was, I started questioning my sanity just a little bit. However, despite this, I was still feeling confident. I love how the rocks look and I'm so happy with the page so far. The page is coming together really nicely, sitting comfortably in those neutral tones still, which is sort of like a blank canvas. But I knew the challenge was going to get trickier the further I got into this page. The real test will be making room for the more out of there colours later on. So I did make a mental note to save certain elements and spaces for when things got a little bit tougher. Starting this next session, I stuck with my neutral colours and focused on the tree foliage, bringing in some brighter greens. Then, feeling like I needed to take a little bit of a break from the natural palette, I switched gears and worked on one of the alien creatures. I picked colours that were still grounded, but gave me an opportunity to inject a bit of variety onto the page. For the ground cover, I hesitated for a little bit, for a lot actually. I debated going for bold, bright greens, but decided on a more muted tone. I knew there were still plenty of vibrant pencils left in my pencil case, and if I made the ground too punchy, it might clash with the other colours coming in later. So I went for a more neutral tone of green. This way would blend into the background elements and allow other elements on the page to take centre stage. I started with a light base layer so I could come back and add shadows and highlights later. Layering really did become the MVP for this entire double page spread. It helped to bring in more shadows and highlights, which helped to create more interest on the page. And the ground cover was such a large area to colour. At this point, I felt like I'd made great progress, but was also realising that the available space on the page was shrinking. I had held off on colouring the clouds and sky for the time being. I was waiting until I had a better idea of a colour scheme before progressing to these elements. Not that you can really plan a colour scheme when you have so many varied and different pencils that you need to use. Now, the sky and clouds were large areas, so I wanted to make sure I could use up as many pencils as possible on those areas and not just waste the use of a large space with minimal pencils, or even by adding in another medium. So this page is entirely coloured with Prismacolor pencils. There's no basing, no other mediums. Hence, this took a long time to complete these pages. So after colouring the ground cover, I had used a total of 41 pencils. I was almost a third of the way there. I left some gaps in the ground cover, planning to use them for remaining browns and greys later, depending on what was still left in my pencil case. I was strategically leaving spaces where I could add in more pencils from particular colour families if needed. And if the space wasn't needed, then that was okay too, as I could just repeat colours I'd previously used in other colour combos. As I worked across the page, I focused on maintaining a rhythm, blocking in larger areas but purposefully leaving space in sections, as I mentioned before, so I could make sure I didn't run out of room, especially for those inevitable neons and metallics that were still sitting there waiting for their moment. Now, I'll be honest, there were times when the weight of the challenge did creep in. Seeing how many pencils were still untouched was daunting, but also weirdly motivating. It really became a puzzle of how to fit every colour in while keeping the page harmonious still. It's at this point I decided to inject more colour into the page to keep me motivated and hold my interest. The 150 Prismacolor set has so many bold and vibrant colours as well as muted tones, and almost a third of the way into the challenge and I hadn't yet introduced any of those beautiful rich colours. So I started working on adding colour to the plants along the bottom of the page, and then I tackled the water, going for some deep dark colours to break up the neutral tones that I'd been using so far. After returning to the ground cover, I added ginger root into my browns. This colour works beautifully with brown tones, and using these more muted tones amongst a neutral, natural landscape helped it to blend in nicely and fit really nicely with the page. So I kept bouncing back and forth between plants and creatures, slowly working through the colours and thinking strategically about each choice. And I end up finishing this session with 61 pencils used. And as you can see from my pencil case, my greens, browns and greys were nearly gone. But reds, pinks and oranges, barely touched. This had already been so many hours of work and we're not even quite halfway yet. In this next session, I started being much more deliberate. I knew the sky would be a major space to introduce bolder colours, so I decided on a galaxy effect. Unfortunately, my camera wasn't recording at first. Don't you love when that happens? But don't worry, I caught it later on and captured the pencils as I added in the second layer. So blues, purples, pinks, and even rich oranges blended beautifully to create a swirling cosmic sky. This ended up helping me use lots of the brighter pencils in a way that still felt cohesive with the landscape. And by the time the sky was finished, I'd used 76 pencils. I'd also forgotten how long it takes to complete a full pencil background, but boy, is it effective. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the clouds at this point, so I was leaving my colour choices open and also dependent on what colours were left over in my pencil case, as well as which colours would look the most cohesive. Honestly, there was way more thinking happening here than I usually do when I'm colouring my pages. Oh, and if you're interested in learning how I did the galaxy sky effect, I do talk through the process in my astronaut video from Worlds Within Worlds by Kerby Rosanes, and I'll tag that video down below if you want to check it out. And yes, at this point, I did start side-eyeing that elusive electric blue pencil and thinking, what am I going to do with you? As I coloured, I found myself looking for excuses to use colours that I normally avoid. I think, okay, where can neon pink actually make sense here? So I tuck it into a weird little alien plant. Sometimes it works surprisingly well, and other times, let's just say I was questioning my life choices, that neon orange just did not seem to want to fit well within this page. And that brought me to the end of another colouring session and ended up at 79 pencils used. There were times when I felt like I was on a roll, blending away, making good progress. And then there were other times I just sat staring at the page, trying to plan 3 steps ahead. I definitely felt the pressure building as the available space on the page got smaller, but the pencils left in the case, still plenty. It's at this point I decided to start on my clouds. I realised my pinks, reds and oranges, which I still had a lot left to use, would work really well for my plants, and some of the blues left were more suited to a neutral palette and would look a bit out of place with the plants. So at this point I was jumping back and forth, working on different elements, just trying to make sure I had space available for each colour, and I was taking care to make sure the page was balanced and cohesive. And to my surprise, my nemesis, electric blue, the colour we all usually ignore, actually found its place much earlier than expected. So I used it in the clouds, and to my surprise, it worked really well. It blended beautifully with the blues I'd already laid down, softening the colour and making it feel intentional rather than a forced placement. It felt completely natural, it fit really well. Who would have thought? And this is one of the things I loved about this challenge. Colours I normally dread using ended up slotting into the page far more smoothly than I anticipated, and it reminded me that sometimes the colours we avoid just need the right context. But even with electric blue out of the way, I still had so many pencils left to work with. With 90 pencils down and 60 more to work with, I knew I was closing in. The bottom plants became my playground for balancing out colours. I carefully placed reds, pinks, oranges and purples across both sides of the double page spread just to keep things feeling balanced and prevent any one area from feeling too heavy. I changed up the colour combinations where possible so I could introduce a new pencil or two but still stay in the same colour family. And if you noticed, I was completely avoiding the spaceship. I kept holding off because it was my last large space and I wanted to make sure whatever colours I used would tie the page together. I did also walk around my house finding different family members and harassing them for their opinions on the spaceship colours. And I did this at multiple points during the process and got different answers from each family member at each point in my interrogation. And in the end, I think they'd all had enough of both me and my spaceship. By this point, I had just 10 pencils left. The finish line is in sight. I am getting so close now, and I still have the moon, the spaceship, and a whole heap of plans left to go. This is very doable. But then came the biggest surprise of all, Deco Yellow. Out of all 150 pencils, I genuinely never expected that one to be the last. It is usually one of my most used pencils, especially when adding highlights or soft glows, but somehow it kept slipping through the cracks on this page. That moment of realization when I looked into my pencil case and saw Deco Yellow sitting there all alone, it actually made me laugh. I remember thinking, you're usually first out of the gate and now you're last across the finish line. So I ended up using it in a green blend to brighten up the combination so the elements stood out against the rest of the foliage in the trees. And honestly, the sense of satisfaction I had when I popped that final pencil into the tub was immense. Now, I still have plenty of work left to do and plenty more colour sessions left, but my focus is now on ensuring I keep the page balanced and cohesive rather than worrying about using different pencils. At this point, I focused on repeating colours to tie the spread together, reusing pink, red, purple and blue combinations from other areas on the page to keep things looking cohesive. After realising near the end that there was very little yellow on the page, I added some subtle pops of yellow-orange to the moon and around the page to balance out the warmer tones. And finally, for the spaceship, I actually used the same colour combination for the water and brought it across the page. I did consider using blues to match the tones in the galaxy sky as well as the tones in the clouds, but I didn't want my spaceship to blend in. I wanted it to stand out. I also contemplated adding stars to my sky, but seeing how busy the page was, I thought adding stars would just add to the busyness on the page. So I left it with those beautiful swirly galaxy colors instead, and this helps to balance out the intricacy of the bottom half of the page. And with that, my page was complete and all 150 pencils were used. But before I wrap up, here are 5 things that genuinely surprised me during this challenge. Number 1, electric blue was easy to use. I used it much earlier than expected and it blended beautifully into the clouds. Number 2, Deco Yellow was my final pencil. Despite being one of my most used favourite pencils, it was the last one to make it on the page. Number 3, some colours worked better than expected. The neons, especially neon pink and neon yellow, actually blended well into the small alien plants and the glowing areas. Number 4, leaving a large element like the spaceship helped balance the page. So holding off on the spaceship allowed me to look at the page in its entirety and balance everything with the colours that I had left. Number 5, the creative challenge was more fun than stressful. I did expect to feel a little bit overwhelmed, but I ended up having a whole heap of fun and it was so rewarding and more like a puzzle than a challenge. Now, if you're thinking of trying this challenge for yourself, here are some of my quick tips. 1, leave space. Keep large areas unfinished so you have room for tricky colours later. 2, layer your colours. Blending multiple pencils together can make even the boldest shades feel natural. 3, stay flexible. You'll likely need to adjust your plan as you go based on how your colour palette evolves. 4, reuse colour combinations. Repeating colour families across the page helps tie everything together at the end. And 5, most importantly, have fun. The challenge is all about creativity, so don't be afraid to experiment. There is no right or wrong result. It's all about the fun and the process. So what do you guys think? Was I successful? Does the finished page look cohesive to you? Does it feel balanced? Or does it look like a rainbow tornado touchdown in alien worlds? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on this page. Would you take on this challenge yourself? If so, tag me on Instagram or post in my Facebook group because I would love to see your version taking on the 150 Prismacolor Pencils challenge or any other brand taking on a challenge of using all of the pencils in those full sets on your colouring pages. So thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you enjoyed the challenge, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've got plenty more colouring adventures coming your way, and until next time, happy colouring, and remember, no pencil left behind. Take care and bye for now.